Of Fact, a program geared towards discussing the issues, constructive dialogue, answering your questions and concern. Matter of Fact, every Thursday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. and every Saturday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Wtp Media Network 93.5 with hosts Nambulumbu, Nambalala, and guests. Matter of Fact, discussing issues locally, regionally, and internationally, and how these issues affect you. Matter of Fact, tune in and listen.
This is WTP Radio, 93.5 FM, coming to you from the biggest village in Little Antigua.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You are locked and loaded into WTP 93.5 FM. This is Youth Vibrations, and I'm your host. I know. Hold a second. I'm your host, Kamali Mannix. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, once it is Friday, you will be listening to Youth Vibrations. We're going to be talking about the things that young people are doing, talking about the things that young people are achieving, or just talking about the things that are on the minds of young people. And so, as is customary, I have a studio that is loaded with guests. My two guests for today are two individuals who I have known for quite a while, and it promises to be a good discussion. So, we are about to get started. We're going to just make sure everything is working from a technical level, make sure everything is in one piece, make sure nothing is broken, make sure everything is in order, and then we're going to jump right into our first segment. And you know, our first segment of every episode is 9 Day Talking, where we discuss something that my guests have no idea, and I throw them into the deep end, and then they have to be able to think on their feet. So, ladies and gentlemen, stay locked and loaded to WTP 93.5 FM, Youth Vibrations. I'm your host, Kamali Mannix. And just after this song and maybe one or two advertisements, we are going to be right back.
We live carefree in this country, while our youths are drifting slowly, while we're heading for depression. Don't you see a problem? If somebody don't help them, they will drift on endlessly, and so will this country. They are the fruits of the nation and its salvation. Our future lies in their hand. They are tomorrow's leaders, so we must make sure that our children stand. Wake the youth, my sleeping country. Wake them, wake them, wake them, let them rise and shine. Teach them the truth that they might see, that to save a dying world is their destiny to be. Raise up, stand up for your country. Forward on, forward on, forward on, forward on. Awake the youth, my sleeping country. Wake them, wake them, wake them, let them rise and shine. Wake them before they grow too old to care. They are drifting, they are wasting.
This is WTP Radio, 93.5 FM, coming to you from the biggest village in Little Antigua.
And we are back with Youth Vibrations here on WTP 93.5 FM. You can hear me better? Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have two guests in studio. Two distinguished young people, in my personal opinion. And at this present point in time, my opinion is the only one that matters, because, this is, again, my opinion. And so I'm going to give the two of them opportunity to introduce themselves so that you guys are going to know who will be joining me for about the next hour and a few minutes as we look to talk about some very interesting things. And I think the discussion part of today's episode is going to, it promises to be rather interesting. So, you guys can introduce yourselves.
Well, hi, good afternoon to your listeners. My name is Marva Woodley, and I am from the Department of the Blue Economy. I am the Senior Policies and Operations Manager. First off, happy World Ocean Month. It's June. June is still World Ocean Month. So just putting that caveat in there. Happy to be on the show and join the discussions today.
Hi, good day to one and all. My name is Asher Cornelius, and I'm a cricket coach for the Ministry of Sports and currently pursuing a degree in accounting and finance with a minor in sports management. So hopefully we're going to have a very good conversation today, very lively debates, and to keep it respectful.
All right. So today's discussion promises to be very interesting. We have two dynamic young people involved in different spheres of life, but under the age of 30 nonetheless. So, just before we go into 9-Day Talking, ladies and gentlemen, I have to do some notices because, you know, it's my job. So, the first one is the Honorable E.P. Chet Green is pleased to announce Summer Camp 2026 from July 6th to 24th. Pre-registration starts on Tuesday, June 30th to Thursday, July 2nd, 2026 at the Empowerment Center from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The ages are 5 to 12 years old, and the summer camp will be taking place at the Liberta Primary School. In addition to that, on Monday, the 22nd of June, 2026 at 7:30 p.m., Honorable E.P. Chet Green will also be having a town hall meeting at the Cubs Cross Primary School for those individuals who are from Piccadilly, English Harbour, Falmouth, so on and so forth. And then finally, Cubs Cross Clinic HPV screening day is on Saturday, the 20th of June, 2026. So that is tomorrow morning from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And the individuals who they're looking to target are women 30 to 65. So, Marva, still not old enough. Isn't that a good thing? We're forever young.
Continue.
No? Right. Women who have never done an HPV test, and then women who have their last HPV test 5 years ago, or women who do not, who have not done surgery to remove their entire uterus. HPV vaccinations are available for girls who are 9 to 26. And, you know, the poster finishes off pretty well by saying early detection saves lives. HPV screening helps identify changes that may lead to cervical cancer before symptoms develop. And so preventative care, or preventive, is preventive, right? Not preventative. Preventive care, or preventative care. Whatever the word be. I got a one in English, so it doesn't really matter. You know, it is extremely important. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move on to the first segment of today's episode, which I like to call 9-Day Talking, where I give my guests an interesting question, you know, from observations of whatever is happening in society. And my guests usually have the phenomenal task of basically answering my question. On the ball, let's get it going. An athlete and an academic. So, you know, should be easy stuff. So, as we are very much aware, we are in the month of June. And in addition to June being World Ocean Month and celebrating all things aquatic,
Marine, ocean,
and salty, and all of these things, we are also celebrating, this is also the month where we celebrate OECS Day, the founding of the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. And as individuals who are from these islands, we all know the integral role that the OECS plays. So, for example, as an Antiguan, I can take up my passport and I can go to St. Kitts and I can just walk off of a plane and get a job automatically because I'm an OECS citizen. As a matter of fact, I could have traveled there even without my passport. I can just pull out my driver's license and my social security card and uncle into the dance. I face very cheap pharmaceutical costs because as a block of countries, we buy all of our pharmaceuticals and share it among the islands. So we literally save millions of dollars on a yearly basis. And if nothing else, I am guaranteed that all the planes that I fly in should work because, you know, even that we share. And here's the greatest thing about being born in the OECS. We all share one currency. So if I go to St. Kitts, if I go to Anguilla, if I go to Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, yeah, $1.
Yep.
Isn't it amazing? And so it prompted me to have to ask this question. Because we've seen all the up and down that has happened over the past couple of months. Some months ago, the Prime Minister from Trinidad and Tobago went to a CARICOM heads of government meeting and said, all I fake, I campaign in another country against one another. When I was the leader of the opposition, I tell I somebody get killed and I never take me on. All I lie and bad and thief and I cheat one another. Wow. And then she said, oh, yes, and that lady also, the Secretary General, the government of Trinidad and Tobago don't recognize her because we weren't in the room to select her. All kind of excitement. And so it prompted me to want to ask the question. from a young person's perspective, do we really and truly believe in regional integration? You know, West Indies no win nothing in a while. Anyways,
Ouch.
yes.
That was a low blow.
Let me hear y'all.
Well, if I were to go first, I mean, it's regional integration. I believe is a dream that we would all love to see fulfilled. But with some of the issues that we may be facing in terms of people not being able to work together with one another, we tend to have a lot of small island versus big island issues. And having been in Trinidad recently, there's that underlying current between the Five Islands campus being a small island nation with Antigua as opposed to St. Augustine or Mona, Jamaica, and Cayville. They tends to be like a big island versus little island. And I do believe a lot of the bigger islands feel like they would be subsidizing for a lot of the small islands. And I think if we get over a lot of that kind of mentality, it'd be closer to regional integration that we would have hoped for. But I think some of those are kind of the bigger reasons. They don't necessarily want to have to look out for the smaller islands, notwithstanding that the small islands do have a bit of value that they can bring to a wider regionally integrated Caribbean. So
I think that's an interesting way to start, and it's even more interesting that you mentioned UWI, because UWI is always heralded as one of the successes of quote unquote CARICOM. But notwithstanding that, when we look
And
at
it's not.
like,
It's not.
that's
UWI
debatable.
is
That's
older than.
debatable.
No, it's
We
not
move
debatable.
forward.
It is not
No,
debatable.
That's not the 90s.
The University of the
That's
West
not the
Indies
90s.
is older than CARICOM. The University of the West
It
Indies was created as a
is.
college to train civil servants for the West Indian Federation. So
And the
even though
Federation
CARICOM
was
claims
the
it,
parents of
it's not
CARICOM.
even tied to
So here
CARICOM.
what? By descent, it's CARICOM.
No.
So we move
Marvel, that is
on.
foolishness.
We
I am-
move on.
Yeah,
We
go
move
ahead.
on.
I will respond to that. Go
We
ahead.
move
Go ahead.
on. But when we speak about if there's young people interested in regional integration and coming together in meaningful ways, I would say yes, there is. What we need to see is maybe a more growing interest, because what you're finding is more, and I don't like to separate us as young people with the academics or the non, but we're persons who would maybe attain tech secondary on some levels or even tertiary education. You see, those are the persons who are also exposed to a lot more, because as you would have mentioned, you travel, you do different things, you integrate with different people. You, whether now that we have a campus here, I'm sure there's students from the neighboring islands, St. Kitts, St. Lucia, wherever. So you get to have a bit of that integration at times, and you value it because you see how building a network beyond your small borders expands you. And I like that you mentioned that there's that whole competition at times when it comes to the smaller islands and the bigger islands. But again, looking at CARICOM, we have to look at CSME, and CSME is one of the biggest benefactors of CSME are the larger Caribbean islands, because we are more encouraged, induced, and recommended to order and
To
buy our
purchase their
things
products.
from them. And we are one of the major contributors, and nothing is wrong with that because of proximity and good ties and relationships. But we can't just throw the baby out with the bathwater and say, here what, it's not good because we don't benefit, when you do benefit. Yes, you have to give up, you have to contribute, like any membership to any organization. If we want it to work well, we have to relinquish not just some powers but some financial obligations as well. So going back to the whole idea, if young persons are interested, I would say yes, but we need to have a greater interest. I'm not sure what the organizations on a certain level are doing. OECS, we always have as a great example when it comes to, within the Eastern Caribbean side of things. But CARICOM is a bigger block. CARICOM has more resources, more reach. CARICOM should also be doing something to help promote regional integration, notwithstanding whatever the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago has to say. But they should be doing a lot more, not just when it comes to...
Kamala was behaving like that one messy friend. Make trouble and then she left the WhatsApp group.
Yeah. Just drop mic. I said what I said.
Yeah, talk
Catch
me more out if you're
Yeah,
bad.
catch me.
So do you believe that some of the sentiments that were shared by our leader in Trinidad may be quietly shared by some of the bigger islands?
Oh, everything she said was true.
Yeah.
And that was part of the reason why they didn't refute.
There was a
Because
bit of truth. We're not gonna give.
well, yes.
There was some truth
so
to it.
it is a reality because, for example, within the Caribbean basin, let's look at her first argument, because her first argument was, you guys come here and you smile and laugh with each other and you take good pictures, but then when it comes to elections, y'all are sending people to other people's countries to campaign. And so there's some truth to that, because within the Caribbean, you tend to have a block of parties that they have similar ideology, similar mechanism of operating, and so they work with each other, right? So, for example, the Antigua Barbuda Labour Party, the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, the Barbados Labour Party, the St. Lucia Labour Party, the Dominica Labour Party, and the People's National Party in Jamaica. And the PNM, which is the People's National Movement in Trinidad and Tobago, they have the same sort of socialist, democratic kind of nationalist type of approach to politics. And so they've always had these long-standing collaborations and relationships. So when you have elections, for example, okay, you need some people to do polls, I will send 2 people from Jamaica from my party. Yeah. But that is at a party level, that is not at a governmental level. Yeah. And it happens in the reverse. For example, UPP and the Jamaica Labour Party and the United National Congress in Trinidad and Tobago and the United Workers' Party in Dominica and the United Workers' Party in St. Lucia, they tend to work together as well on a political level. And so, though some of what the Prime Minister said was correct and she wasn't lying, the context of it was kind of, where you kind of go off and be like, yeah, I understand what you say, but then does it really have something to do with this?
What you were saying was exaggerated at one point, because yes, we understand that CARICOM does have its flaws, and as she perfectly put, elections of just even a SG is so controversial at times that you wonder here what is trickling down at the basin of CARICOM and fulfilling its duties and its tasks. Because one thing that she highlighted beautifully is, where is CARICOM on certain matters happening within the region? Where is CARICOM on Haiti? Where is CARICOM on
Cuba and Venezuela?
Where is CARICOM when it comes to the U.S. being in our waters and other geopolitical agendas at the time? So where is CARICOM?
Yeah, but then part of it is too, you have these instances of politicians looking after their own interests, which messes them up. Because, for example, when the United States wanted to put in a radar system so they could monitor Venezuela, when the United States wanted to do all kind of crap, she, as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, was fully allowing the United States, come, do as you please, we're your greatest allies. And I remember when we had issues with our visa restrictions, she went on in public media, and look at Antigua and Ray and Gaston to be like, babes, they make me have to tell you for wash your kin, you check? And the whole 9 yards, all because of the fact that she had her own interest. She wanted the United States to authorize gas deals and so on and so forth. And then it didn't work out. So then to some extent, you can't, in one instance, be approaching your own foreign policy and pushing your own agenda. But then when it's convenient, you say, CARICOM should be functioning as a block. Because one of the things I like, whoever that cameraman was, them in need blue. Because every single time she said something controversial, then just pan to the Prime Ministers at the front. They're just like, yeah, look on their face. And the general look of a lot of them are just like, why this heifer don't shut her mouth? Right? So you had some of them who were just like, genuinely like, yeah, I don't want to hear you. Whatever you're saying has no consequence to me. But the issue that creates is, though a lot of the regional institutions function, what individuals see is the excitement. So what young people are going to see is the Prime Minister's arguing and Kamala saying, I full of crap, and all the rest of it. And then these are the thoughts that may permeate. Mind you, we aren't aware that ECHA just approved some plane that can fly. We might not be aware that CXC just do something for exams. We might not be aware that $1 million of pharmaceuticals just came into the region.
Ocean policy, Yeah,
repeat that.
CARICOM is launching an ocean policy. Yes.
We might not even know that CARICOM is launching an ocean policy. Yeah. You get me? But here it is. What we are seeing is the dysfunction, and then that dysfunction feeds. And one of the things that has always irritated me, the Caribbean is such an interconnected place that I don't even think we realize how close we really are. And I'll give you guys 3 examples. Our first Governor General was a man named Sir Wilfred Jacobs. Sir Wilfred Jacobs was born in Grenada. However, even though he was born in Grenada, his father was from Antigua. Why was his father in Grenada? He was trained as a teacher in Antigua. Grenada had a shortage of teachers, and he went to Grenada. And so a man who was born in Grenada, grew up in Grenada, went to Grenada Boys Grammar School, ended up coming to Antigua to serve as Governor General. And a whole bunch of individuals at the time when VC Bird was like, no, let him stay as governor. Let him stay as Governor General. Oh, but he not come from here. And VC was like, he's probably more Antiguan than half of you. Right? Example number 2. We look at how a lot of our political parties came about and why they collaborate. Why did they collaborate? Why did they work together? Why do we care? Okay. So in Antigua and Barbuda, VC Bird was fighting against the Antigua Sugar Factory. In St. Kitts and Nevis, Robert Bradshaw was fighting against the St. Kitts Sugar Factory. But guess what? Both were owned by the same company. So then a lot of pictures that you see of Robert Bradshaw, there's VC Bird in the background. A lot of pictures you see of VC Bird, there is Robert Bradshaw in the background. Because the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And then we looked at all these other things. So Marva might have studied in Jamaica, and she might have met somebody from St. Lucia and got married to them. But though he was born in St. Lucia, his parents are from Grenada. But then his grandparents are actually from the Dominican Republic. They just go, you know, that is the reality of how the Caribbean functions. Yep. So we tend to move from this. Look at Marva.
Prime example.
Marva is a... both of her parents are not Antiguan by birth.
Yeah,
right? But she is here.
Yeah.
And she can meet somebody who's from another island and have a child here. And then you see this interesting web continues. So when we have this general mentality of we are so separate and apart, I'm just like, boy, I really am bag of duns, do the birds.
I think it's a more layered conversation than just saying persons are ignorant. I think it's also not being able to tell our stories and our histories, because as close as we are to each other, the cost to go to St. Kitts may outweigh the cost to go to maybe the US. And that in of itself puts a damper on how we are connected, because yes, we have social media and we have the internet, but as you rightfully mentioned, what is being plastered on those platforms are the dysfunction, not the beauty, not the interconnectedness of the islands. Again, we can't go there in person because it's so costly, so expensive. We rely on the few countries that actually have an institution to show us that kind of commingling activity and how to interact with each other. And that's why I started by saying it needs a bit more than what is there now, because there are platforms, but you really see that with secondary and mainly tertiary persons who've had that educational experience are more open-minded and understand this whole idea and concept of regional integration. To even have the conversation of, hey, is CARICOM doing what it's supposed to do? What can CARICOM do? You don't have a lot of young persons integrating and having dialogue on what that is, because you just don't know. They're just not concerned until they see something on social media.
And so as we look to wrap up this part of the conversation, it's so interesting because the sad part about it is we have seen the rise and fall of so many regional institutions. And all of these institutions have had one mandate, which is to bring harmony to the islands in the Caribbean. Literally since the 1700s, they've grouped us together. Leeward Islands Federation, Windward Islands Federation, West Indies Federation. When that failed, they threw their hands up in the air. And you had a VC Bird who said, hey, let's try the Little Eight. And then, okay, you had a VC Bird, a Forbes Burnham, and others who said, okay, you know what, let's try Carifta. And then after Carifta, you had a CARICOM. And then when CARICOM literally was unable to adequately service the needs of the smaller islands, you have the iteration of the OECS. And the sad thing about it is the OECS, sad to say, has accomplished a lot more of the tenets of regional integration, because when the whole idea of regional integration came out, hold a second, the British government literally gave a few things that regional integration was supposed to achieve. It was supposed to achieve, one, greater trade throughout the islands. So greater trade in terms of movement of people and movement of goods. Number two, one of the main mandates was the harmonization of a currency. So the idea was all of the territories would have been able to use one standard currency that would be able to stand its weight on an international market, hold a value and be able to do something. And then the more emotional part of it is being able to harmonize this and to see ourselves as Caribbean people in addition to being Antiguan and Barbudan or whatever the situation is. Sad to say, most of that has not been achieved.
I won't say that, but I really wanted to hear Ash's question.
Well, yeah, the question that I would have that would underlie a lot of these issues is that, do you believe that our individual nationalism takes precedence over our regional nationalism
by far
as a West Indian? Because I would say that a majority of the young people that you would be referring to, I wouldn't say that a majority percentage is in academia to be to what's the word I'm looking for? To take these issues as something that is important to them. They don't take it as a precedent for them to be focusing on what can we do to integrate better, what can we do to ensure that CARICOM works beyond just the current status quo. But for regular, I don't want to use regular, that seems a bit...
The average.
Yeah, but to the average young person who's just focusing on the stresses of life, that is making money, trying to get by, keep up with the standard of living, I don't think CARICOM is really on the forefront of their mind as to how can I be more integrated with my fellow Jamaican or my fellow Vincentian. Another part of it is that a lot of families nowadays don't even make it important to find out who your great uncle is, who your great aunt is, who's your grandfather. There's a lot of people that I know that
They have no idea of their past.
Yeah, they have no idea. Not
Yeah,
just
your
their recent
lineage,
past.
lineage,
Just a grandfather. You're not even aware that your grandfather is St. Lucia. You've never been to St. Lucia in your life. So I think that kind of erodes some of the identity that some people do have. So like my colleague to my left here, I mean, considering that you know your roots, you've come in contact with them, you've visited extended family, that kind of brings the Caribbean together, as opposed to, well, I would have left my home country, had a child with somebody in Antigua, and now I'm isolated from both our families who may have grown up in Jamaica and Guyana. So that doesn't necessarily encourage coexistence among countries, but more so an importance or encouraging identity within just Antigua. You know, and a lot of Jamaicans do that, and a lot of Guyanese as well. They do that because they came as a husband and a wife, or a boyfriend and a girlfriend to Antigua. We're going to uphold our ideologies and beliefs,
And try to make our children Guyanese in an Antiguan context.
We're not actually Antiguan. We're Guyanese, just living in Antigua. And then on the completely opposite side, they're going to have people that has no sense of identity, and we just live in Antigua, and this is what we do.
Yeah, but then that also creates...
I want to jump in a little bit here, because then I think that's a little bit of a... I don't agree with it 100%, because then we have that national and culture that is also being developed, where as an Antiguan you can and you do have that opportunity to learn your culture and integrate on what's happening on a national level, because even though you will always have those regional ties, and I think this is where it comes back to that whole question of, are young people interested? You have to know where the balance. Do I prioritize my national priorities or my regional priorities? And they always say, fix your business a yard before you go a road. People have to, and countries have to look at their interests. What is best for me? And it goes back to something you raised, the realities of the everyday man and woman. Yes, well, CARICOM is arguing over a single currency and who should be SG. Friend, it's Friday now. My
It's
hit.
insignificant in the grand scheme of my life.
Hit. I need to party this weekend knowing how much events coming out. That's what's on their focus. It's not so much so, whatever is happening with SG and this whole movement of regional integration. And as you rightly said, it goes deep into like maybe your culture. You use your culture or cultural erasure. When you have a lot of mixing and divesting, as person love to call it as well. But no, I think as a Caribbean, we kind of also do have that identity when we are outside of the Caribbean. So whereas everybody may lump us and think, oh yes, you're Jamaican. No, yeah, I'm in the Caribbean.
Yeah, but I've seen
just
that
not
in America.
that country.
I've seen that in America, that a majority of the time, people who migrate to America, they're gonna still keep their nationality of I'm Antiguan. So when people ask, where are you from? They're proud to say Antiguan, Jamaican, St. Vincentian, Guyanese, and they're going to take that up there. But then within the Caribbean, we tend to not do it as much. So we're going to come to Antigua, we're going to keep our Guyanese heritage, but we're not going to try and learn or try and integrate into the Antiguan culture, which is a problem that I don't think much people take into account when they move to America. Because when people move to America, yes, they tend to keep their own traditions, but they do also kind of assimilate with the American culture, and they don't really do that in the Caribbean. So I will be an Antiguan, go to Jamaica, and then I'm going to disregard how Jamaicans are accustomed to live in my own Antiguan ways, and then call it, well, I'm just expressing my identity as an Antiguan. But then there's a certain level of assimilation when you move to a different country. And if we're in CARICOM or within the Caribbean, considering that the goals of the CARICOM is to have easy movement and harmonization, we shouldn't be tied too much to what Antigua is or what Jamaica is, what we are as a Caribbean, because we all share similar history. And a lot of us are so interconnected, or families are so interconnected, but because we don't know, we just kind of hold on to what the country is as opposed to what we are as a Caribbean.
So my suggestion is this. I take your point, and I think it's a very valid point in terms of the reality is my main focus, the main thing that's on my mind at this point is the fact that the 25th is next week, Thursday. And in my mind, I'm just like, boy, I may tell my good employer, just make sure by 2 o'clock, I get like a I'm see ACB alerts, else me and somebody can have serious misunderstanding.
I'm a young person who
right?
really doesn't really
And so,
these days.
what I think would be a really great solution to even, some of the things that we're talking about is if more of our young people had the ability to interact with each other from across the region, I think this jaded mindset we have of I am this, I am that, I am this, I am that disappears. I tell people I think I'm one of the luckiest people on earth in that I have been privileged enough to travel up and down the length and breadth of the Caribbean basin. And I absolutely love it. I am, and Marva can tell anybody, I'm practically Kittian at this point.
Kittian. In my mind, my fourth nationality is Jamaican, yes.
Right? I am practically Kittian at this point. I can give you directions to almost anywhere in St. Kitts, Nevis. At this point in time, Montserrat is hopping up on the list because right now we're frequent Montserrat. And so when I think of the Caribbean to me isn't an abstract concept, but it is a thing that is alive. So, nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a very quick commercial break. And then when we come back, we're going to be going into the discussion part of our episode today. And we're going to be talking about young people and work ethic, because, my God, some of you are hard workers. And mighty God in Zion, some are lazy, Right? So we're going to take a very quick commercial break, and then we're going to be right back with Youth Vibrations here on Wtp 93.5 FM. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host, Kamali Mannix, and I'm joined by Asha Cornelius and Miss Marva B.K. Woodley, the original. So, ladies and gentlemen, stay locked, stay tuned. We are going to be right back.
We live carefree in this country while our youths are drifting slowly, while we're heading for depression. Don't you see our problem? If somebody don't help them, they will drift on endlessly, and so will this country. They are the fruits of the nation and its salvation. Our future lies in their hand. They are tomorrow's leaders, so we must make sure that our children stand. Wake the youth, my sleeping country. Wake them, wake them, wake them, let them rise and shine. Teach them thy truths that they might see, that to save a dying world is their destiny to be. Raise up, stand up for your country. Forward on, forward on. Forward on, forward on. Awake the youths, my sleeping country. Wake them, let them rise and shine. Wake them before they grow too old to care. They are drifting, they are wasting. Utilize them or we lose them. Unemployment leaves no alternative but to walk and wander, lime deep a bed. And some policemen are ever willing to beat and shoot out young men. Frustrated and angry, degraded and hungry, brother, they lime the street in a trance. Tell me, how can they excel in this country if they're not given a chance? Ah, wake the youths, my sleeping country. Wake them, wake them, wake them, let them rise and shine. Teach them thy truth that they might see that to save a thy world is their destiny to be. Raise up, stand up for your country. Forward on, forward on. Forward on, forward on. Awake the youths, my sleeping country. Wake them, let them rise and shine. Wake them before they grow too old to care.
This is WTP Radio, 93.5 FM, coming to you from the biggest village in Little Antigua.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Weezy here. Are you looking for some nice, relaxing music while you do your chores on Sunday morning? I got the perfect radio station for you. Tune in to 93.5 FM every Sunday and listen to easy listening Sunday mornings. We see you the Maestro of Love from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and rock to music from yesteryear to this year. From Louis Armstrong, Tina Turner, Sam Cooke, Whitney Houston, musical selections just for you. You won't regret it. You're not going to regret them. That's it, Antigua and Twang, guys. It's your girl Weezy again. And remember, you're listening to CJ the Maestro Love, easy listening Sunday mornings on WTP 93.5 FM. Unwind, relax, and enjoy.
Matter of Fact, a program geared towards discussing the issues, constructive dialogue, answering your questions and concern. Matter of Fact, every Thursday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. and every Saturday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on WTP Media Network 93.5 with hosts Nambulumbu, Nambalala, and guests. Matter of Fact, discussing issues locally, regionally, and internationally and how these issues affect you. Matter of Fact, tune in and listen.
This is WTP Radio, 93.5 FM, coming to you from the biggest village in Little Antigua.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with Youth Vibrations here on WTP 93.5 FM. I'm your host, Kamali Manix, and you're locked and loaded into Youth Vibrations. You know, we're talking about the things that are on the minds of young people, talking about the things young people are interested in, talking about the things even that young people sometimes are advocating for. But for today, we're talking about young people and work ethic. My guests are Miss Marva K.B. Woodley and Mr. Asher Cornelius. Yes, you know, it's only important people use their initials in between their first and last name, you know. And you're lucky I don't use the letters that come behind of it too.
Where they
right?
at?
Yeah, dear me?
Accordingly. But
okay,
yes.
then. And then we also have Mr. Asher Cornelius. So, you know, we're here having a good time and talking about a few things. So, ladies and gentlemen, something recent, you know, something interesting popped up recently where we saw some statements being made from the Prime Minister, and then, you know, social media and others reacted, where the Prime Minister was basically talking about, well, one, the work ethic of young people on a whole, in terms of, you know, young people who go to work and every other day they're sick, every other day they're tired, every other day they're calling in something and something and something. Then there was another post where you saw the Labour Commissioner who was making comments and saying, well, Antigua and Barbuda, they do have jobs. We advertise jobs all the time for maids and waitresses and cooks and cleans and rays and ras and all the other in between, but it's either one, people just don't apply, or they work for 2 weeks and they disappear. And then there was further statement saying, well, hey, during the age of the elections, we hired 700 and 800 young people, and one bag of them just stopped coming work. So where are we? What are we? And then there's a conflict between one side that say, I do not work, and the other side that say, we work and I not get paid. The excitement of living in Antigua, Barbuda, Redonda, and the Old Road. All four of these countries, it's just absolutely wonderful. And so I want to start by talking about some of the attitudes towards work in general, especially when you look at an Antiguan context. Do you think young people are less hardworking and just lazy? Want a free ride, want an easy ride?
Oh my gosh. No. We can't put blanket statements on young people. I strongly detest that approach to discussing these type of topics, especially any mention of young people. Because, and then I want to start with some of the articles you would have referenced, and I think many of them were a bit disingenuous because they were made without better context. They were made without data or information. They were made without taking into consideration the actual realities that these things would have happened. They didn't happen in isolation or in separate bubbles. When we look at, okay, do young people want to work? We have a bloated government system that employs every and anybody, and then there was an attempt to stuff it with more persons without adequately thinking of a sustainable plan. How are we going to either integrate these people? And then definitely you have young persons on the other hand that some persons are lazy. It's just is what it is.
Yeah.
We're going to have a section of that in society, but then you really do have a subsection that wants better, who are willing and able and are hardworking, and they don't want to turn to nefarious things or unscrupulous activities in order to make a meaningful, livable salary. And I have to express that because oftentimes we figure giving somebody a little something is supposed to satisfy them. Okay, no,
$1,300 a month.
In this day
In
and
this
age.
in the 21st century.
And God forbid if you have a child with
The
that.
other day
Come
somebody said me
on.
make 1375 Mava. You know how to almost 40 foot.
I thought they meant $13.75 to pay. That has to be an hour or something, because that's come on, that's a bit absurd and ridiculous with the cost of living in Antigua. We're not living in a more cheaper country where maybe a wage like that could go further or something. We're converting the currency to something lower. So it must be livable, I think, above all else, is you're not going to create any true sustainable deterrent from crime and violence. And before we came back from the break, I was telling Asha, desperation is what's going to breed innovation, and innovation sometimes leads to crime and violence. Because when you're thinking about how many ways you're going to steal the neighbor's things, it takes a bit of innovation, unfortunately. And I don't want to just go down that road, but it's a case in point where we can't just make blanket statements of young people.
Okay, let me hear you, Asha. Do you think our young people we're less hardworking, we're lazy, we don't want to work, then just want to sit down every day and lazy? I was finding it interesting to listen to old people talk about young people.
Well, what I would say is, as my co-host will say there, it's not a situation where you can just make broad blanket statements. I do believe that you can break them down kind of into about three categories, in that you have people who are educated and skilled and can't find the word that they're looking for. You have a set of people who are unskilled, uneducated, and severely overestimate their market value. And then there's people who are stuck in the middle, that they're willing to work, but then the amount of money that they're working for is just not meeting the cost of living, essentially. So there's three categories that you can break it down into, and I think the problem, or what the Prime Minister would have been talking about specifically, would have been unskilled, uneducated people who are basically laborers that are overestimating their market value. I mean, coming into the workforce as an entry-level job or just as a laborer, a standard construction worker makes, I think, $150 a day, $150 a day on the job. So when you have 700 or 800 unskilled people coming to public works for a job in road works, I mean, if they believe that for the amount of work that they're doing, they're not getting paid enough, it is my belief that if you want to try your luck elsewhere, you can. But I'm going to tell you that across the board, you're going to be paid about $150 a day, and sometimes you might be paid less, because That's just where you are. And normally when people say that, because I hear a lot of old people do say, oh, well, take what you can get until you get what you want.
Yeah.
But that only applies to a different category, which is the people who are skilled but haven't found the work that they want to. Like, I find it unfair. Right. I find it unfair that if you're going to go to school to learn to be an accountant, I shouldn't be taking a job at a supermarket
Cashier.
as a cashier just because that's an entry level and I have to. I've spent 4 years in school. I've spent money, time, and energy to get an accounting degree, get my certifications, and you're going to tell me that when I apply to a bank and they say, well, it's full right now, and I'm supposed to just apply to a supermarket, that's a waste of time.
Okay, so let me ask you other question just before you respond. Okay, and you can just respond by saying me. Of the three of us, and I know I'm doing this, eh? I know I'm doing this. Trust me. You don't trust me?
I don't know, it's Friday, I'm not sure.
Okay, of the three of us, how many of us have completed primary school? Yes, what you're supposed to say?
Me.
Thank you for the instructions.
Put a finger down.
Okay, how many of us have completed primary school?
Put a finger down. Me.
Right? Me, well, me too. Yeah, I'm gonna go second. Yeah. You went to primary school, right?
Yes.
Me. How many of you,
Primary.
how many of us at least have completed tertiary, college, abyss, anything? Me. Right? So do understand, our perspective is very skewed. We are a part of, unfortunately, not necessarily an overwhelming majority. Right? Especially speaking from a male perspective. Me and Asha are such a minority, it's not even funny.
Well, the thing is, I have a lot of friends, because I come from Browns Avenue, so I have a lot of friends who may be into unscrupulous activities, you know?
Not you just defaming an entire area. You just bring a whole area to shame and into disrepute.
Nobody knows exactly what I'm referring to. I'm
You
not
bring my
incriminating.
whole area
Friends
into...
act accordingly.
You didn't even tell you he just bring
I
a
am not
whole area into
incriminating anybody
disrepute.
at all. I am just saying where I'm from. That's a relatively big amount of people, and that's a lot of people. But I'm from.
Me the
Browns
person thump your head.
Nah. But long story short, I mean, I've come in contact with people from Browns Avenue, Cashew Hill, Grace Farm, Grey Hill. I speak to these people on a regular, and a lot of the time, their mentality is, I've finished secondary school, and I don't want any more school. That's
Yeah.
the first thing.
That's if they finish, eh?
That's if they finish. But a lot of them do. They do pass through, 5, 6 subjects, whatever the case may be, but they pass technically. But they often have the mentality, I don't want any more school. And no matter how I would speak and be like, well, what about Abyss, learn a trade? They're like, that's school. No. What about going to college? That's school. No. So when you look at the mentality of that specific type of people, unskilled, uneducated, as well as people who are just looking to get by.
The idea of a job at public work seemed very
Right.
good.
It is going to be something that is enticing to them.
So then I want to ask a question here now. So then you've raised that aspect of the individual who says, I don't want to do any more school, maybe after secondary school, assuming that they finished. And I'm not going to make it to everybody, not just a male, right? So I want to hear you guys' perspective. When you ask a lot of them, okay, so if no school, what next? They'll tell you, oh, more for work, more for make money. Do you think that mindset to some extent is a reaction to socioeconomic circumstances? Because, for example, I've had students who they either drop out of school or right after secondary school, they start working, and 99.9% of the time, it is a household maybe of a single mother and they are the oldest child. So then there is genuine, so then the poverty line is here and they are like hovering right above. And so for them, I need to work so that I can, add a buffer for the family. So move us from right above the poverty line to maybe a good 5 feet above, So do you think part of it is the mindset of individuals in a certain area, or just sometimes it's a reaction to socioeconomic circumstances?
It's two. The first one is, you're right, socioeconomic, but those people usually fall in the bracket of I'm trying to find work because they would be working before they even finish school. So
True.
from fourth form, fifth form, you're already 16, they're already looking to work because the household is not stable enough to just work on just the mother's income or the father's income. So they're already working. Those people are fine because and that's also like social media wise, the hustle culture. So they're like, I need to make this work. I need to help my mom, need to help my siblings. So they're going to do it regardless. And normally, they are the people that are going to get vocational skills. They're going to look for something that they can carve out, a trade that they can carve
And
out.
charge somebody $1,000 for doing for 2 hours.
Right. So they're in the hustle culture. But then there's the other set that they will just, that's not socioeconomic at all. They're just of the opinion that I don't want to go to school and I am not aware of the opportunities out there to make money. And I've never been in contact with anybody that makes excessive amounts of money from positive or productive means. So when is it that I'm on the corner? I wouldn't say corner, or when is it I'm at the house with everybody and somebody comes in after 7 and is like, yo, where they holding? Oh, well, just a cool. That happens to a majority of, not a majority, but it happens to a good amount of people, especially in the age group of about 15 to 21. They see people within their circle, either family or friends, that they're not particularly working a 9 to 5. They're not
doing anything constructive.
Yeah.
But then you see them with a Lexus, you see them with a Honda, you see them with a car, you see them with the chains, you see them going to
Marva, how I tell you they get it.
and then they wonder to themselves, how did my friend, how did my cousin, how did they get it? But then they have no concept of, okay, maybe I should find a way to make this kind of money. They're just seeing the lifestyle and it's like, well, maybe I can
Yeah. Okay, so Marva, what do you think then? Do you think it's socio-economic? Do you think it's the idea of an area? Or do you think that young people just need to understand that you need to top watch what people have? Because, you know, and we forget them and go look. No, because that was one of the things my grandmother always said to us.
Yeah.
Do not look at anything that anybody has.
Yeah,
Because you do not know how they got it, whether good, bad, in between, or indifferent. Work for what you want.
What I would say, and it's even something I had wanted to circle back in on when Ashwood have mentioned earlier, you know, my position on most things is always, it's layered. We do not operate in isolation or in vacuums. And Ashwood have perfectly laid out so many scenarios and situations where it's not just your environment, but how do you feed off of your environment and how do your environment feeds into you.
Or feeds off of you.
Yeah, feed either out. It's a symbiotic relationship, and it at some point when it's no longer symbiotic, it becomes
Parasitic.
So you have to make sure you're on that positive side of things because again, we don't operate in vacuums. He would have laid out some perfect examples. We want to emulate the things that we see people have. Then why are we constantly rewarding bad behaviors?
Yeah.
Why are we congratulating horrible things we see done in society? One of the things I'm a big advocate for is bringing back shame. Maybe if we had some shame on certain things, society wouldn't be the way in which it is.
You know, my grandmother used to say that all the time. Every time she'd watch the news, she'd say, part of the problem is, I don't know shame no more.
No, but it is a real thing because gone are the days where, and we have to also highlight the fact that this happens often in single parent households. Gone are the days where the village was a village, and even though it was just mommy in the household, lady on the corner would say, hey, make sure you reach home, the street light's about to come on. Or hey, you would act accordingly because you know if the neighbor tell mommy what you was out here doing, you know his problems when she get home. So it's all of those things that we have lost touch of with in society, and those things would have feed off into making individuals into who they are, and they would feed into whether it's good things or bad things. But I wanted to circle back on the job because when we look at young adults now who find themselves doing unscrupulous things, and we either want to blame the environment, because at some point you can no longer blame your parents, you can no longer blame your environment. You as an individual have to take accountability for your actions and the outcome of your life after a certain point. And when we look at the type of jobs that are given away, as you rightfully said, people want to overvalue their stuff. There are a lot of people in the government system and in general who are worked like dogs. And it's for one reason or the next. They would never be compensated enough because of just how unfortunate politics is with certain things, and that's the reality we have to accept.
And then you then have a
open
very large section who
conversation
do absolutely
about.
nothing and get paid
And
a
they're
lot.
getting rewarded. And then when we also look at it, it is again a bit disingenuous when I heard some of the comments with young persons not wanting jobs, because why are the jobs most prevalent and always in our faces? Service centered jobs, seasonal jobs. You know, you can't have a meaningful life. How are you supposed to buy a piece of land, get a mortgage, sustainably provide for your kids? You're going to now have to go into that hustle culture of working 2 and 3 jobs because, okay, hotel half season and, you know, my food to spend aside and da-da-da-da-da. So we need to encourage persons to also diversify, look into other sectors, promote other sectors and other areas so that we're not just so heavily dependent on the tourism sectors. Because not everybody wants to go into tourism. It's going to become oversaturated and not doing it.
That's a point that's a very good point to be made. A majority of what the lady would have said, I don't remember her name or her position, but she's with the Labor Department. She highlighted service jobs. So cashiers, waiters, people working in hotels.
Mm-hmm.
A majority, and this is another aspect, a majority of children have seen what their parents went through. Their mother working long shifts, maybe double shifts. They don't want to do that because they have seen how it has impacted their mom.
And how quick you get to nowhere.
Right.
Because one of the things that I remember seeing just recently, for me, business places need to have shame. Marva, really bring back shame. You see our problem be? Hey, shame dead no one and he did it wrong, right?
Bring back community.
A business place, a prominent business place, had the heart to post a flyer that says, yes, we're looking for security guards, and you're going to work 8 hours a day, and you might be working 11 o'clock at night to 7 o'clock a morning. And at the end of the good Lord's month, you know, I'll give you $1,400 broad dollar,
Hold on.
and you
Say
must survive.
wages,
And when me
competitive
see
wages.
this business,
Against myself?
when me see this good business, had a heart, the audacity, the gall for post that they say, boy, I really not have no shame.
And that's before taxes.
But no, let us call a thing a thing. Part of the reason is a lot of these jobs, they aren't necessarily targeted at Antiguans who are born here. They often target individuals who are residents of Antigua, who may become citizens of Antigua at some point, but are not from here. And then what ends up happening, because, you know, okay, I'm a foreigner, I'm a whatever, I'll take it, I'll put up with it, but then I would like to believe that if you come here to make your life better. And I'd also like to believe that if you own a business, your aim is not to exploit your staff, but for them to give you their service and for you to give them their pay. But no, what we're doing, you young come, work and wash some dishes and make $1,400 a month. You can't afford nothing. You can't even pay for 2 course day UE. You can't advance your life, but come and get out your work. If you're foreign,
I don't agree, Kamal.
Why? Tell
You're
me.
making blanket statements again, because you're going to have a large section of people who, let's be honest, you have no skills to offer this employment. Maybe the $1,400 is too much for you. You have nothing to offer besides being able
No, I'm not
to
talking about those
stand
people, you
there
know.
and be there.
I'm not talking about those
I'm
people.
not trying to devalue individuals, but this is something that Ash would have raised before when we want to overestimate our value in the job market. And if you are at an entry level, you have to understand this is an entry level pay. The onus is on you, and again, you can't constantly blame society and, oh, mommy wasn't there and daddy was a. You have to take some ownership of the trajectory of your life and say, here what? This is entry level. I don't want to be at entry level in the next 2-3 years now. How do I upskill? What do I do? And make some level of sacrifice. It's either you're going to make sacrifices when you're in secondary school and study and do your best at CXCs. It's either you're going to make sacrifices and maybe get a job and try to afford college or a scholarship to attend college to upskill yourself. It's either you're going to make some sacrifices as an entry level job and put in the hours and the dedication to move up the ranks. But in some way, shape, or form, you have to be willing to make the sacrifice, or you will be stuck at the bottom of the toilet pole. And I think that is the essence where the Prime Minister was also trying to get at, where you can't overestimate yourself in the job market and not try to value yourself.
But then let us call a thing a thing. Do you think we have a lot of young people who really and truly think they are too much than they actually are? And again, anybody has the right to be delusional and to think that they are the greatest thing since, you know, God made man. My dear, that's up to you, right? But do you think that may be part of the reason why you will hear young people cry and complain? Because I'll be very honest with you. I have had students, I have had associates and acquaintances who drop out of school in second form and they may be working for a construction company. Or what a joke it all, man, and they want me to lift blocks every day and only pay me $150 a day. And you have Mason, them and they make $300 a day. And you're just like, uncle, uncle, let me tell you something, right? let us all collectively have several seats. Because the $150 being paid, me think he gracious. Let's call a thing. Me think he very gracious.
Most definitely.
So you go and lift the 2 blocks and please to be quiet.
Right, and I think that is the specific set of people that the PM would be speaking about, that these
Correct.
people have overestimated their market value, but then what we need to also look at, and I think a lot of people overlook this particular statement. I think he made a statement saying that we haven't had any statistics done on the workforces 2016
yes,
and 2017.
yes.
The thing was,
I heard
we're supposed to do labor force
Yes,
surveys.
Right.
yes. So
And
we're
we
making
haven't
decisions
done
without data.
Right, so my particular speaking point in that is that when you make the broad statement like that, how much of that percentage is truly reflecting your particular standpoint? Because if you're going to say a majority of people don't want the work,
On what basis?
correct.
Yeah.
On what
Based on what number?
2016 and 2017 is the last time that you would have admitted that we did such labor force surveys and whatnot. So what exactly are we using to make these decisions going forward? How is hiring 700 or 800 people for public works?
On the government payroll, eh?
Right. How is that the solution to what you would have also admitted to get them off the streets? If they already have the mentality that you are not paying me enough for coming to work
That's
for government.
sustainable.
Someone will come and work and make something. I might sell little less weed. Come here, make one greater amount of money.
Yeah.
But me not have sell
I
all
have
the
a main
weed.
job, but I need that side hustle.
Correct.
Most definitely. I mean,
Because the pay might pay the bills, but then the weed might pay for the gas in the car.
Side hustle.
You get me say?
oh no, the other way around.
And so we're in a very tricky position. So then my question is now, and then it flips to those individuals who are what they consider in social science as underemployed. Or so now let me put it from this perspective. You're a security guard. You're making $1,400. You do not have any CSEC subjects. And instead of your employer saying, here what? If you would like to do maybe 2 subjects a year, I as the employer will pay for half of it. You pay the other half. And so if you're here for 3 years, by the time you're done, you have 6 subjects. And so here, you can even left here. And you can go somewhere else and get better work. Or you might even start night classes. So here, by the time you work for me for 6 years, you don't have a bachelor's degree, and make an employer as an accountant, you might even left and go buy a business. You get me? See? So I think part of the problem a lot of young people also have is we have employers who also don't like carving out that space for us to be better. And the reality of the situation is, I keep telling people, if you employ me, and in the process of employing me, you are upskilling me, more than likely, that skill is going to be brought to you. Because I'm going to be so grateful that you've wasted your time and money. I'll be like, you know what?
Invested.
That's the word. That's the politically nice word, right? That you've invested in me, I'll be happy. And I'll give you an example. I had a co-worker who, upon learning of her qualifications, I realized that her qualifications were not up to scratch. And then a day I sat there and I said to myself, you've been here for over a decade, and your employer has done nothing to make you even slightly better off. And I was like, yeah, we have a problem. So do you think part of the problem that the young people face is they're in jobs, and is there really much ability for upward mobility? You have people out here fight for 2 cents.
You're always gonna have that argument that persons think they deserve more, and they will always fight for more, because again, it's based off of their lived realities and the rising cost of living, because that is what is their motivating factor. But when you look at upskilling and our employers or even the government sector providing opportunities for upskilling, what I would say in that regard is, yes, I think what is the disconnect at time is employers employees don't know where to go to get the information, or it's not that easily accessible, or it's like some oftentimes you have to step out on that limb with the first foot, and then you can have expectations of your employer, because yes, you may come and feel so, loyal to the company because we were able to get you these CXCs and these bachelors, or you can feel like, here what, I'm bigger than the program now, I quit. When you quit, one thing about education and knowledge is it's yours. It doesn't stay anywhere. You and it go together. It stays in your head. It's all yours.
So what I'd ask the both of you, do you think it's the responsibility of the workplace or the responsibility of the individual to be aware of the importance of upskilling and being... So, yes, the question that I have for both of you is, do you think it's the responsibility of the workplace, or do you think it's the responsibility of the individual to be aware and to attain upskilling and more information and skills as they go along?
Okay, this is how I view it. I think the onus is always on you to want to do better for yourself. And especially if you're in a job that's crappy and you're in a position that's crappy and it's because of your qualifications, you have to be the first person to say, I know what I want and I know what I need to get there. That's one. That's one piece of the puzzle. The other piece of the puzzle is employers must also be cognizant that if I have an employee who's trying to do better, I must also be willing to give them space to do better. So it's not that, for example, I'm going to tell you, hey, I'm trying to do a UE short course in supervisory management or whatever, and these are the hours of my classes, and as a supervisor, you're going to always schedule me to work on the times that I have class. Or you're going to tell me, well, hey, I'm not even going to give you maybe 2 days. We're being reasonable. Okay, so for these 2 days, I'll make sure that you don't have no shift during class. But the other days, I can't make everybody else suffer because of you. So it's two-edged. The employer has some level of reasonableness that they have to put into play, and then the employee also has to be reasonable. If you're unsatisfied with where you are, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to sit down and say, oh, nobody even want to make me study? Oh, this money look a bit.
And I agree with you 100%. The only thing I would have to add into it is the fact of the matter also remains that the onus first and foremost will always be on the individual. Nobody can control your destiny beside you. It's your part. It's something that you have to be motivated. Self-motivation, yeah? You have to want that to a certain extent, because some employers do put themselves on a limb and do send them, but then because you didn't really want it, you fail, or the money is wasted,
or you go to class and never go to rest and them kind of things.
But then the beauty of it is, and I go back to saying, when you've learned what you need to learn, it is yours to take wherever you want, whether you stay in this job, whether you ask for promotion, because there is a flip side often where even though you've upskilled yourself, that doesn't mean you're guaranteed an upgrade at work,
position or
all the
upgrading
positions
pay
above are filled. You may have to just leave the sector and do something different.
But then I would encapsulate everything by saying this. An individual has to ask the number one question: what is it that you want?
Yes.
Is it that I want to just be a worker? Is that I want to be a supervisor? Is it that I want to be an owner? Is it that I want to live with my parents for the rest of my life? Or is it that I want to own a house? I want to own a piece of land. I want to be able to travel to France and Tokyo and South Korea and all of these things. And so I think if individuals are better able to say, this is what I want for my life, then all of their decisions in every facet, in finance, because you hear people talk about financial literacy, in education, what they want to learn, in jobs, everything will line up. But then one of the questions I really need to ask you guys is this. Why do you think with all of these factors, and we're saying, hey, it's not black and white, there's so many other moving parts and moving pieces, why do you think then older generations think that young people are lazy?
Okay, so I'll explain that first. I think it's because it's, I don't want to use the word, for lack of a better word, I'll use capacity. Because a lot of the older generation, they were never, especially a majority, I'm speaking in majority terms, I don't think they were ever taught or they knew just how much more opportunities there are for work. I don't think that they were aware of just how many different opportunities there are for work out there, as opposed to what they were currently um, that they were currently being offered. So somebody going into the workforce in the 70s or the 80s, may
When
only
VC
have
Bird
been
was
aware,
Prime Minister.
yeah, may only have been aware of these certain set of jobs.
Then wicked self.
Right? And I don't want to call out people from Old Road. I'm not doing that. Please, I'm not doing that. But what I'm saying is generations and generations of people out there.
No, but plenty of them wicked.
No, they would have said, hey, look, I'm a fisherman. I make X amount of money as a fisherman. And then they would tell their children, because I know this, hey, look, you can come on the boat with me. And then we make X amount of money on the boat. So they're not necessarily aware of just how many more opportunities are out there. And then there's some people that only have the mentality of, well, I'm living through struggle, I just need to make money. It doesn't matter how I make the money, I just need to make money. But there's many different opportunities, and they're just not aware of them. So I think that's kind of why the older generation kind of tells the younger generation, just take what you can get until you get what you want. But if you don't know what you want or what is out there, there's nothing much to choose from versus what you will just have right here.
But then I think you do have some level of generation gap though, because for example, and Marva has worked in the public service. I've worked in the public service, and me and Marva will have literally 2-hour conversations about the public service, and you have some real wicked old nigga. They're in the public service before Antigua an independent country, and then till they, I don't know what. If a young person says, I think because of my job, I deserve travel allowance. Oh, when I entered into the civil service, Antigua only had 3 buses. I had to ride on donkey to go to All Road to do the government's work. And I did it when I was always on time, and my clothes always looked good. And then get all kind of laddie that done the bird story. Lady, me in the cave, you and Jesus, me in the kindergarten together. Me say in the 21st century, based on the work that I do, that I just think I deserve a travel allowance, And so I think it's that kind of sometimes just difference of looking at life that causes these conflicts.
That the two of you work alongside a lot of the older generation, and you always speak to them a lot more. I don't really converse with them. Where do you think the mentality comes from that? Because you did it that way, we now 40 years later have to do it the same
Bad
way.
mind.
What I would say and give some credence to is that a lot of the older persons, especially in the government system, the system is still operating the same way it did when they were there. So oftentimes, yes, some do come from a place of malice, some do come from negative spaces, but that's just how it is. For example, you may think a PS, for argument's sake, is holding back on giving you a promotion. But for all you know, they maybe put it in, but that promotion takes 6 months before you see $1 on your salary because of all the processes and who may come work and who have to take vacation and all of these other things that are in between the mix before you can even see that, even though it was approved 6 months ago. So oftentimes, a lot of them, the system is still operating the same way it did with them, so they share the advice because it's still a reality today, even though that was their reality back then, because the system is just antiquated at times. And then another point of it, I would say is, often what I'm now seeing is that shift in society, especially when you circle back to that question of, is young people lazy and whatever, young persons are more bolder with saying, here what, me left this job today now. I don't care about no pension package and all that.
Yeah. I will survive. Because you have a lot of older individuals, they'll get one good job.
And they stay in it
and
forever.
for the time they realize, okay, this job, it can pay me on good money and I can probably get a mortgage. Hey, 40 years. Yeah, and I'm going to be here.
Yeah, and as you rightfully said, there's more means and entries for employment. You may find me today and tomorrow I start a business. I do something entrepreneur-wise, or I do something social media-wise, or the unfortunate thing, I migrate. I will be fine, but you're not going to stress me. You're not going to take away my mental peace. I already have all of these other stresses in life to come and work for you for these, pennies on the dollar. No. So young persons are saying here, I will happily leave. It's okay. And I will leave you on your job alone. So there's that also component of it where I don't think it's laziness. It's just a shift of culture and what persons are willing and not willing to accept now.
But then I want to ask a question, and this is as we look to wrap up the conversation, because I kind of want to pull it away from young people to a certain extent. Do you think, by and large, in Antigua, we have just really horrible work ethic. Because, for example, rain come today or tomorrow, nobody going to work. A PS says, well, we're going to have to be putting in some hard work over the next week. Oh, I'm going to take sick leave then. And I mean, who them I talk about? And I'm sure we've all heard it. We've seen it. Individuals who are being paid and for a week then show up. Or an individual who every 2 weeks then get a different job in the private sector because...
Do nothing.
Huh?
You show up and do nothing.
And when they show up, they do nothing. Even in the private sector, you have some people who... They've probably worked at every single hotel in Antigua, Barbuda, Redondo, Old Road, St. Kitts, Nevis, and probably any other country in between. Because of the fact that no matter where they go, all they want to talk to me whenever they feel like and tell me that me can't smoke weed when me they work. So me just left that work and then that man a bad man. So do you think by and large we need to have a kind of a mindset shift as to how we view work?
It's going to it's an underlying theme of mine. I think we need to become more educated and aware. And when I mean educated, I'm not just talking about going to school, but I am also speaking about the fact that it is your responsibility as a worker to understand the labor laws and the labor codes, first and foremost. It is your responsibility as a consumer to understand your rights through consumer affairs. There's certain human rights. I don't want to use the word human rights, but there's certain rights that we have as living in a democratic society that people are just not privy to and they're not aware of. So they tend to just make their own adjustments without much backing or much understanding or context. So when somebody says, well, yeah, I can just go any other hotel and work because they're not allowing me to smoke or whatnot. I mean, that just comes off of a mentality of not knowing, I assume. I mean, I could be wrong. It's not a not knowing. They're willful in what they're doing. But I'd like to look at it more so that they just don't know. But I could be wrong. What do you believe?
I think that's a genuine way of looking at it, that ignorance is bliss. You can't do what you just don't know. But then when we boil it back down into here, what is it? Just simply a bad work culture. And I think it is. It is going from strength to strength, sometimes almost going bad to worse, where we've seen every generation come and do just a little worse, just a little worse, just a little worse. But we're still employing persons. So the bad, the good, the in-between, the old, the young, everybody's mixing and everybody's practicing these horrible cultures when it comes to work ethics and how we view work. But I think overall it's something stemming from how are we indoctrinated, how are we oriented into this, what was your first step? Because oftentimes, and I'm saying this as a person who, when I moved back to Antigua in 2020, I started working at the Department of the Blue Economy in 2021, and that has been my main government job and employment from then until now. And I've seen that if you come in seeing everyone or everybody come, work start 8 o'clock, but everybody but rolls in at 9, you're not gonna value rolling in at 8. Who's seeing me coming at 8? Nobody cares. That's not valued. And then we have staff meeting, and the minute you may be coming 9 o'clock, oh, she late.
Mm-hmm.
So we look at those things. How are you indoctrinated? Does everybody come and do what they need to do? Are there clear job descriptions? Are the directors and who need to be in charge even competency look over the others and provide said direction? So it's something of how we were entered into it. And thinking as simple as a baby. Babies don't know curse words. Some babies don't even know who their mother and fathers are. It's what they're being told. It's what they're being introduced to when they start. And as you rightfully say, what are they being taught? So when you start the job market as an infant, what cultures are you adopting that by a toddler, by a teenager? As the years go on in this industry, that by 10 years later, and the day with he because he's so and so. Well,
but if I could make one point to that, in a few of my friends' personal experiences, you are 100% right that the prevailing belief or system, the antiquated system and culture is perpetuating people to do less and less work and it kills innovation in young people as well, because when you come in with ideas and you come in with a way to improve the system, and you're met with the two prevailing things. One, government don't have any money. That's the number one thing. We can't get we can't get new equipment.
There's never money, but always money to waste.
Yeah, we can't get more resources.
Treasury can't get out to treasury right now.
We can't get anything out to treasury right now. So then the young people are like, so then what are we gonna use?
Why be innovative?
Yeah, why are we gonna?
Why come to work on time?
Right. You know, and then you're gonna see the older generation roll in and be like, boy, roll in 8:45, man. That's safe, man. What do we have? We have a meeting for 10:30.
No, because
I can't call the meeting.
you know why this hits home. My department that I work in, everybody works for different times. Everybody works for different times, right? And so it's always very difficult to measure. Okay, so because we work for different times, we all start at different times, we end at finish time, at different times, right? And so when we're at work, you have to maximize all that you get out of it.
The collective
Because
time.
you know that, okay, I might say, no, okay, I'm going to do this at 4 o'clock because I finish work at 4:30. However, somebody else in my department might finish at 3, you know? But then what I saw in the government system itself, particularly in teaching, is exactly that.
Yeah, even if there's one set standard time.
Yeah.
Secondary school starts at
8
o'clock.
8 across the board, every public secondary
Every
school.
primary school starts at 9.
Some people roll in 8:45 on a regular basis. You had I had some co-workers who me forget they're my co-workers. I'm more shocked when I see them day school than anything else. And it's like, wait, you still work, yeah? But you best believe every month then, them I get paid.
Yeah.
And so I think your introduction to work then becomes so much more important, and who you have to lead you to. Because if when you start to work, you are under the supervision of an individual who's a hard worker, really innovative, finds resources, they're going to go above and beyond, you know, they're going to tell you, hey, don't worry about all this stuff, you know, there's always a way to work around it, and you're going to be like, you know what, I'm Superman, I can do this. If your first supervisor is a supervisor from hell,
A person you never see, just
you hear me tell
send
you?
emails and sit at a desk. And
Yeah. Or you there work and this random
Toxic.
person walk in and say, who this here?
So
And then you realize, oh,
okay.
okay.
Ask one question going forward for the young people, especially considering that we're speaking about young people. Is it that we can? Is it that we've reached a certain point now that we are allowed to tune out the older generation to preserve our way of doing things? Because if we have acknowledged as sensible young people here that sometimes how we are indoctrinated or how we are introduced to the workforce can determine how we ourselves operate in this workforce. Is it enough for us, or is it a certain time where we can say, look, I acknowledge how you do things, but in order for this to improve, we need to be able to do it in a way that is more efficient and more effective, and we have learned the way to do it. So you being in a position for 17 years, 20 years, 25 years without qualifications, and I would have gone to school, get qualified, understand the procedures necessary, and say, look, I understand that you have expertise, but I have the knowledge. Is there a way to bridge the gap, or would that be stepping on the older generation?
I would say it's more multifaceted than that. And I'm going to tell you why. Because there is argument about qualification versus competence. There are arguments about qualification versus experience. There's arguments about competence versus know-how. Because I can come into a government department with a PhD, and if I've never worked in a government department, I would know how to upgrade a civil servant. I would know how to approve somebody's vacation. I would know how to send memos across an entire ministry. I would know how to prepare a cabinet note. I would know how to interpret a cabinet decision. Nothing. Why? Because I just have paper, but I don't understand the institution, right? On the other end, you have some individuals who, if the civil service was a textbook, they're probably the writer. Because every single process and procedure they understand to the T, to the point that they can teach it. However, they would make horrible technicians, because do they understand the civil service? They do not understand the technical aspects of life, right? And so again, like all things that we've said today, it's layered. What I think you need is one, individuals who are qualified in any field, because you do need technicians. You need individuals who have the knowledge you need individuals who have the knowledge, as in how the public sector works. So when your director is telling you, I can't get no money out of Treasury, this individual can say, babes, just give me 2 email and 1 phone call, and the check is signed. You get me say? But then you also need individuals who have experience, because if I have been in the civil service for 30 years, it's me. It means I've seen the lows, I've seen the highs, I've seen the changes, I've seen the advancements, and I've seen where we have done these things and the end result. And so I think, particularly talking about the civil service, I think you need a perfect combination, right? But I will always say individuals need to know where they are, because if you have a lot of experience, my dear, please go study. So nobody can say, oh, you had the experience, you have the know-how, but you don't have the first degree. So and every time you hear civil service, one PS or somebody say first degree, it's like, it just backs you. On the other hand, you have individuals who say, oh, me have a degree. Me supposed to be director of the department. Yeah, babes, okay, tell me how you write one cabinet note. Tell me how one, if one cabinet decision come, how do you actually implement it? Tell me. Tell me, explain to me. And then they go silent. You get what I'm saying? And so that's why I always say your introduction to a place of employment really matters. Because if you have an employee who's going to sit down and say, this is what you do, it makes it easy. The first school I taught at, horrible. Why? My HOD just said, teach. Didn't explain to me anything. Didn't set any parameters. It's just like, my HOD said, oh, me never teach history. Me can't tell you what to do. So I went to school every day. I was probably doing absolute crap. By the time I went to SNR, I had an amazing principal. Oh my God, I love Listine Bradshaw to death. Oh my God. Nobody can ever tell me anything bad about Listine Bradshaw, because I'm going to pick up on Big Stone. And then I had an exceptional HOD in the form of Terence Charles. And so Miss Charles was able to go, okay, you do this very well, but this is where you can improve. Oh no, you're supposed to do this. And these are the words you use. My deputy principal at one point in time was Miss Lana Richardson. And Miss Richardson was probably the greatest blessing to me for my teaching career, because she came in and a lot of the technical things about teaching that I didn't understand, Miss Richardson sat down and she literally guided me through it. Because she's like, if I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to do it militant and I'm going to do them right. And then I had the other individuals around me, the now deputy principal at SNR, Miss Shepherd and so on, who all came together and in such a way, within a very short space of time, made me a proficient enough teacher that I could say, okay, I can confidently do my job. So your introduction to a job is important, especially from the public sector perspective, because may tell you, plenty of people have supervisors from hell.
Oh wow, yeah. I think that's even the least. And then I don't want to just also limit it to introduction, but then we must also have a real conversation about the reward system, because you can't maybe increase everybody's salary every year because, maybe you do a certificate or you upskilled yourself or whatever may be, but you can also show gratitude and reward, because we're humans. You have to remember that human element when it comes to employment. You want to retain good, skilled workers. You don't want everybody flying out or switching jobs at a whim because she not treat me good. Sometimes it's not just always the pay, but how do you treat each other? How do you talk to people as well?
You can't run a department by emails.
Yeah, you can't just even speak to people in condescending ways just because of age.
Giving commands.
Yeah, so I think it's layered like that, as well as how do you show gratitude for their hard work. Mm-hmm. Not because you're their superior mean that you can't say, hey, thank you, or introduce maybe a review performance
employee of the month,
or
even one of the things I appreciate, and I tell people this all the time. So when I was at SNR, I used to love staff meetings for the one reason: if I had a staff meeting, what means good day? No. Listen now, how she staff sit down for hours. I want to play it now pass some way, right? If we're having, you see like how now, correct, you see like how now is the end of the school and we're going to have promotion meeting. From the time you step inside of the staff room, bread over there, saltfish over there, sausage over there, one pot of porridge over there. So when you hear teachers are having promotion meeting, 8 o'clock sharp, 7:30 staff room full. Ready for work. And nobody can say, oh, it's 1:30, we can't finish promotion meeting. No, you're all right.
We'll go over the hour.
You're all right. We get the work done. And so these very small things that were done. And so you had, here's where I saw it. Usually during summer vacation, it's almost impossible to ask teachers to come out to the house to do anything. I remember after my first year of being there, we had a registration for like the new students coming in after the results for national assessment. Mrs. Badge was like, teachers, I want a few teachers to, come and assist me. I said, let me go. I'm probably the only one. Almost the whole staff show up.
Because it was a reward, eh?
Literally, almost the whole staff show up. And everybody
and
in
that's
there.
good, because then now you not just develop a system where you have workers doing things just for reward, but they do it because they understand here what I'm appreciated. The value I have in this space is acknowledged, it's recognized, and when the time is allotted, it is rewarded accordingly. You don't have persons working, and then say, oh, well, it's all of the duties in your job description. No. There must be a limit to understanding reward.
But can I add to that as well? The predominant thing that you're all saying that covers all of this is actually a degree in management. Like people who are actual managers, supervisors, directors, coordinators within the government system, they don't actually have degrees in management, and this is what management covers. How do you deal with people? How do you create interpersonal relations in which you can get your tasks completed in an efficient and effective manner? How do you create employee-manager relationships?
Yep.
Right?
Good,
all of these things are actually taught.
Sometimes I don't even think you need a degree now, you just need decency. Because if you're decent, because I can have a degree in management and still treat my staff like crap. I think I'm gonna tell you why I say it comes down to decency, because oh my God, just treat people nice. Oh my ever loving
Remember
God.
how it was when you were there.
Just treat people nice. You hear me tell you? And just treating people nice goes a very long way. And I've seen it in so many spheres. I've seen it in work. I've seen it in youth organizations. When I was president of Youth Parliament Association, nobody here is being paid. Everybody is coming here because of some intrinsic motivation, whether they have an agenda or not. But here, I'm grateful for whatever energy they're providing. The least I can do is be decent, be pleasant, be nice, be inviting, be welcoming, understand people, meet them where they are so that the task gets done. Now, fine, we're changing the context because they're going from free work now to paid work. But the standards of decency, understanding how people feel, understanding how people think, those things then come into play. Because, for example, my principal, she has I think her bachelor's is in accounting and her master's is in something else. Yes, Mrs. Bradshaw's degree is actually in accounting.
Yeah, she taught me
right?
math in high school.
Correct.
She taught me
Her bachelor's degree and I think her master's are both in accounting, and I think she has she has 2 bachelors and 1 master. Some story so.
Yeah.
Some one of them are on double, she do 2 or something. Right?
Yeah.
So in the midst of that, she doesn't have a degree in management. She doesn't. That's just reality. However, I think she's an amazing principal. I worked with her for 7 years, and the fact that I was willing to stay for the 7 years. I remember I used to tell people all the time, and Marva can tell you, because Marva was to entertain on my phone calls. I tell people straight up now, if Ministry of Education were to call me today or tomorrow and say, oh, I was transfer for SNR, that's the last day me work, me tell her I'm gone. It not happen, I'm gone my business.
But what I would say that is very interesting as well, you mentioned just how much Miss Bradshaw would have impacted just how well you can produce results in terms of children, right? And a part of it also is the fact that, don't you think that she has these qualifications enough that she can go on and be a big accountant?
Yeah.
But she loves children.
She have to teach.
She
So
don't have
yeah,
to, but
I
she
get what
loves
you're
children.
getting at. So her
she's
passion,
doing it. Her passion, she likes to do it.
is fueling
But then
it.
there's some people that literally don't want to be there, and because they don't want
So
to
go
be
home.
there, right, but because they don't want to be there, they're not imparting that on young people that are coming in
Yeah.
with a certain level of
Emotions.
optimism. So and it's private sector as well as public sector. I don't want to be here. But because now I have to manage you, I'm going to be condescending. I'm going to have a bad attitude towards you, and now your workplace or your work ethic is skewed because you're not coming into the workplace like, wait, is this what work?
You know, it sounds one if people is and can go home and be a housewife or a house husband, or just be
You
an
have to have a provider for
just be an
that.
unemployed bum.
Thank
Because
you.
if your intention is to come to work every day to make everybody else miserable, tanty tap home.
No, sometimes, and it goes back to, remember when we were talking about young persons and their environments. Oftentimes, you're miserable at home and you have no other outlet besides the poor people and them that come into work just for their liquor 1,400. So that they feel they have no choice but to take it because they really are they're desperate going back to that work.
So they know you're punching bags for your anger.
They have no choice. But then you raised a very good point, Asha, when you mentioned that HR is very important, and oftentimes, and I'm happy that you touched that because my first degree is in human resource management. So although I work in the ocean and IR and policy and understanding people, humans is at the core, and where when also we have conversations of AI and technology taking over jobs, there's certain jobs no amount of computer or technology will be able to take over because of that human element. You need that human element. It's the compassion, it's the consideration, it's what's going to make people remember, here, don't talk to me crazy now because outside is a different story. It's those elements that encourage a person, here, what, have decent respect for each other because you want that respect back. So you're not going to talk to people crazy because you don't want me to talk to you crazy, because at the end of it, yes, you're paying me, but we are adults. We are in a society where, again, young people are not afraid to match energies. I'm going to meet you where you meet me. So
when they go low, me tube down.
Thank you. So when we peel back the layers and stuff like that, we have to understand there's that human element. And some persons will do it for the love, for the passion, but you need something else. Love and passion alone don't pay bills. Love and passion don't get through when you're working with a horrible boss. You're gonna be demotivated after a while.
Well,
Yeah.
This is kind of my standpoint because I love cricket. I love every aspect of cricket. If I couldn't play cricket ever again, I would be completely satisfied with doing anything else which is cricket, which is scoring, coaching, commentary, anything because I love cricket. But with the current system that is cricket in Antigua, or just sports in general, or the current government system, it really does kill your motivation or intrinsic motivation to push forward and to innovate within a particular sector, because people are going to tell you, well, this is how it's always been done, and you just have to make do. Right? That's what the older generation will tell you.
I think the solution to that, and this is coming from my success story for being as young as I am and achieving where I am at, a bit of it is coming in at the right time, studying the right things, positioning, but then a part of it is also don't take up more than you can manage as a young person. You're not going to come and systems that were in place before you and your parents even born are going to be changed or reversed because of you. You start with the little that you can do, and you show it with even the things that you do at work. So here what? Yes, the culture we come and meet is, the boss and the supervisor hack and back at you. But then that doesn't mean that the newer staff members, know that they're junior to you, you should treat them the same. At some point, you have to show a difference and stop a certain cycle, because then it's just going to continue repeating. Because it's not what's on paper is the problem with the government system. No, the system isn't a problem. Yes, some things are a bit antiquated and do need upgrading, but it's the people. And if you continue doing the same things, you're going to get the same outcome. Somebody must come and say, here what? I am not going to treat these people this way. I'm going to do things different.
And so on that note, I'm just going to wrap the whole discussion by saying this much. I think my central encouragement to young people would be, as you are transitioning out of school, because let's be honest, at the end of the school year, a lot of people are graduating, a lot of people are doing all these things. Think about where you want to be and then let that guide your approach to your job. Naturally, we are humans, and so the human element will always come into play. Somebody might make you angry, somebody might piss you off, and all these things will play with you. But for me, I think at the end of the day, everybody wants to go home and be able to honestly say with themselves, the money I've been paid, I have worked for it.
Well, if I could just piggyback off of that, if I were to speak to the younger generation currently, I would implore you, I would beg you, please get educated, and please have a passion in life. Have a direction. Don't sit down assuming or just because of your environment that you need to go and make whatever money is necessary. Do not make yourself smaller just to fit a particular situation. Have a direction in life, work towards it, explore as many options and opportunities as possible, because the more that you are aware of your surroundings and your opportunities, the more that you're educated, a lot more doors are going to open for you, and you can be in a better position than you could have ever thought possible.
Yeah, and I love that. And if I'm supposed to add to that, especially in my closing, and quiet plug, because we've been talking a little bit about when I started, I said Happy World Ocean Month. So
You know,
Ocean
go for
Month
good,
is
and you just can't allow me for the more work.
Yes, Ocean Month is still happening, and we have activities. So feel free to browse the social media page of the Department of the Blue Economy and see what we have going on there, and get informed, get educated.
Such
There's
as?
a lot of opportunities there. So that's what I would say, because that's not the premise of the show. But in my wrapping up, what I do want to add to some great points that Ash would have already laid out earlier is, as a young person, don't be afraid to take risks. Don't be afraid to take chances. Don't be afraid that you will be the youngest person in the room, or that you may be the most unwise person in the room as well. We have to start somewhere, and it's being the willingness to start somewhere is what's going to get you from nowhere to actually somewhere. So that's what I would add with, and most importantly, small island doesn't mean small-minded. Open your minds to different things. You may not have to travel, you may not have to integrate with people. You have a phone. Don't just use it for social media. Try and engage in meaningful ways. Not everybody is going to be book smart. Not everybody is going to be hand smart or street smart. But try and find a lane that can make you some meaningful, gainful, sustainable employment and wages. So, in years to come, 5 years when you sit down, you can say, hey, well, I'm proud of where I am today.
Right. So as we look to wrap up today's show, I'd like to say, first of all, thank to my guests for coming, particularly because both of them had to come from the city. Right? And I would say this much, right? And I think people underestimate it. Because of where WTP is, most times the guests have to really be determined to get here. Because it is in the country. Let's be so for real. And especially Friday afternoon traffic, when government then send home all them workers and everybody on the road and every single street, by road, alleyway, road that runs to people's backyard, how one vehicle and it occupied, and they dig up over here, dig up over there, dig up, and everybody's just trying to get on the road. So we have to express your appreciation. But I think the discussion was lovely. Because, that's what we do here, Youth Vibrations. We come on and we talk about the things that young people are doing, the things that young people are advocating for, and just the things that we would like to see happen in our society. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is officially the weekend. It is Friday. It is time for us to relax, and most of all, to get home on time and get home in one piece. So, as we look to officially begin the weekend, I would say to everybody, enjoy your weekend, enjoy everything that is to come. And for our young people entering into the workforce, enter the workforce to make a difference, to work hard and to build a good life. Good night, everybody.
Every day on WTP Radio, I present an eclectic show called I Love Music from Monday to Friday. And the good thing with me is you never know what's coming next. We play Motown to Claudette Peters, we talk technology, and I even get in the mix. Check in with me at 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Monday to Friday on WTP Radio 93.5 and 93.7 FM and around the world at WTPantigua.com.